What's going on, everyone? This is Kevin here, coming at you with my hands-on and first impressions video of the T-Mobile Revvl 8. So without further ado, let's get started. So this is the T-Mobile Revvl 8. Now this phone recently launched and it is definitely a budget option with an MSRP of just $199. Now this phone is being offered to both Metro by T-Mobile and the regular T-Mobile, and I'm definitely expecting this phone to be very successful because all the various Revvl devices over the previous years have always been a top seller over at T-Mobile. Now this phone and the Revvl series is definitely unique because this phone is literally under T-Mobile branding. It's not like it's a Motorola or Samsung. This phone is literally a T-Mobile phone. And as you can see on the back of the phone, we just have the T-Mobile logo. Now one thing that's especially made the Revvl series stand out is that they're actually delivering a lot of value here. So these phones are typically decent quality, and many people who end up getting these phones actually get them for free. In fact, at Metro by T-Mobile, for example, you can get this phone for free if you're switching in from another carrier or even creating a new line. And then at regular T-Mobile, it looks like the phone's also free for new customers. But before we get too far into things here with the T-Mobile Revvl 8, let's see what all comes included in the box. Now here is the box. You can see the name of the phone right there. Also on the side of the box, you can see it says Revvl 8, but included is a SIM card removal tool. We have some literature, including the quick start guide, and we have a double-sided USB-C cable for charging and data transfer. Now despite this being a budget phone, the display that we're getting here is actually really big at 6.6 inches. This display is LCD, and we are getting a 120 Hz refresh rate. So 120 Hz is actually a very impressive specification here. This refresh rate is really fast, and it definitely comes in handy when you're navigating around the phone. Everything is just very smooth, and definitely makes the phone feel a lot more premium than it technically is. Now we are getting a 1080p display, and this display does feature a PPI of 400, so pretty crisp and clear. And then we are getting a 20:9 aspect ratio, so a more narrow but taller form factor. Now one downside though with this display, and I think that partially is due to it being LCD, is that it doesn't necessarily have the best viewing angles. So you can see when you're looking at the phone from the side, for example, it just gets very dark. So you really have to be looking at the display straight on to get the best experience. But again, for a phone that's very affordable such as this one, you really can't expect too much. And at least at a bare minimum, I'm glad that we're getting that faster 120 Hz refresh rate and the fact that the display is 1080p and it is as big as it is. So this phone is still a good option if you want to sit back and relax and watch video content, go on social media. All of that's still going to be a really good experience. Now up top here, we do have a water drop notch, and in that notch is a 13 megapixel front-facing camera. Now definitely stay tuned for my upcoming review video, as I'll be showing you a variety of different photo and video samples from all the various cameras here on the device. Now in addition to this being a water drop notch, you can also see that we are getting pretty large bezels all around the phone. So the side bezels are a little bit slimmer, but even despite having this notch up here, we still have a large upper bezel. And then the bottom bezel is even bigger. So it's certainly not the most modern looking device. I mean, this phone easily could have launched in 2018 and looked exactly like this. But again, that's one of the downsides or one of the compromises that comes with a phone being as affordable as this one. Now with this device, we're getting 128 gigabytes of storage, and along with that, we're also getting micro SD card expansion. Another bonus with the SD card expansion is that it can actually take micro SD cards up to 1 terabyte in size. So that's certainly a great thing if you do want to build upon the current storage that comes here in the phone. Now 128 gigabytes is actually really good, especially for your budget smartphone, and I feel like for most people that's plenty of storage, so that certainly should get you pretty far. Now with this device, there's no wireless charging, which is a bit disappointing, but a feature that I don't expect to find with a budget smartphone. And on the right side of the device, you can see the power button here has this cool magenta look to it, T-Mobile magenta, but this button is also the fingerprint sensor. So you can see it's very fast and responsive, so it's a very easy way to get into the device. And then up top here in the front-facing camera, this phone also has face unlock. So it is nice though that we are getting multiple methods for getting into the phone. Now on the back of the device, we have a dual camera setup and a flash. So there's a 50 megapixel main camera that does feature optical image stabilization, also known as OIS. Basically with OIS, if you're taking a video, it's going to be a lot smoother, and if you're taking a photo, that photo is less likely to be blurry. So that's actually a nice premium feature that we're getting. And then the other camera is a 2 megapixel macro camera to assist with close-up images. So here's how things look on the camera app with the main rear camera. Then from there, you can go over to the More tab and we get some additional options. There's actually a dedicated 50 megapixel mode, so you can make the most of that 50 megapixel camera. So by default, the images are not 50 megapixels, just because taking photos in that megapixel count can definitely take up a lot more space on your device, and they figure that a lot of people don't necessarily want or need that. but it is still nice that it's there for situations where you think it might come in handy. We also have the macro camera, and then with macro, like I said, you can get very close up, and things are in much better detail. So that's a nice feature as well, but I don't think you'll be using that quite as much as maybe some other functionalities within the camera system here. There's also portrait mode, so you get those nice blurred out backgrounds. I like that you can adjust the blur level as well. And then flipping around to the front facing camera, we can take portrait selfies, and then we can also take standard selfies as well. Now with this phone, we're getting 6GB of RAM, paired up with the Qualcomm Snapdragon 6 Gen 3 processor. Now it's actually a relatively new processor from Snapdragon, although since it is in the 6 series, it's nowhere near as powerful as their more advanced chipsets, but that's totally understandable. But the good thing is this phone does have 5G compatibility, which I feel like in 2025 is pretty much a necessity. And then I did run a benchmark test using Geekbench 6, and here's the scores that I got from that test. So I got a single core score of 823 and a multi-core score of 2527. So what I recommend doing is running this test on your current phone and then compare your scores to these scores to really see how the T-Mobile Revvl 8 compares to the device that you currently have. Because you certainly would not want to upgrade to this phone if it actually ends up being a downgrade. Now also with this device, we're getting a 5000 mAh internal battery, and a nice thing as well is that this phone does support up to 25 watt fast charging. So not only are we getting a big battery here with the phone, but you can also recharge it pretty quickly. And then this phone does feature Android 15 out of the box. We're also getting NFC, as you can see from the symbol up there. And this phone does feature stereo audio, so you'll be getting audio out of both the main speaker and the earpiece when doing things like watching video or listening to music, which definitely comes in handy. And another nice bonus feature is that T-Mobile is advertising this phone to have T-Satellite with Starlink. They claim that you can stay connected in places never thought possible with the only mobile plus satellite network that connects automatically. So I'm not really sure how that works in real life. Honestly, most places I go in my life happen to be where there's some sort of cell connection. So I don't even know where I'd be able to drive to test this. I think I'd have to drive hours from where I live right now. So I'm not sure if I'm going to do that or not. Probably not. But it is cool that we are getting that compatibility here. And I suppose if you're someone who likes to go on hikes, or if you just think you're going to be stuck out in the wilderness, that could someday come in handy. Now on the right side of the phone, we have volume up, volume down, and the power button, which doubles as the fingerprint sensor. We are getting plastic on the back and sides of the phone. And on the left side of the phone, we have the slot for the micro SD card and SIM card. Up top, we have the noise canceling microphone. And then on the bottom, we have a 3.5mm headphone jack, microphone, USB-C port for charging and data transfer, and the main speaker. And then on the back of the phone, we have the dual camera setup, flash, T-Mobile logo, and that's pretty much it. Also, if you can see based on the angle, there's a slight difference in texture up above here, but overall it's actually a pretty decent looking handset. Despite this being a budget phone, I do think it looks stylish. Now, some could argue it's relatively boring, but I actually like this frosted finish, and it doesn't pick up any fingerprints at all. Now, since it is made out of plastic, you probably want to pair up a case with the phone, but if for some reason you decide not to, then it certainly does look nice even as it is right now. But this concludes my hands-on and first impressions video of the T-Mobile Revvl 8. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, definitely give it a thumbs up. But this is Kevin here. Let me know what you think of the phone, and I'll see you in the next video.